It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
So I wanted, before we get started, to let everyone know that I have a new podcast out, and it's called Meditations. If you like the Meditations segment of this current podcast, you'll like the Meditations podcast. It's nothing but 20 minutes of meditative sounds. And now, on with the podcast.
Americans love scenery. We want to see it all, from one coast to the next, Mount Rushmore down to the Everglades. So hop into a Chevy Malibu and take the scenic route. It's the car you knew America could build. There's a place where people count on friendships they can trace back generations, where they can count on the same stool at the coffee shop waiting for them every morning. This place is called Glen Ellen, and you can find it in every bottle of Glen Ellen wine. This is craft brewed Herman Joseph's, the smoothest, easiest drinking specialty beer in the entire solar system. And I believe you'll find drinkable in the dictionary right after don't order a beer you can't drink. Zoingo! Boingo! The freestyle pogo with more boing, more bounce. Bounce further, bounce higher with Zoingo Boingo. To see what makes Arrowhead Mountain Spring water different from those other waters, you have to go back to the source. And with Arrowhead, that means going back a little farther and longer than most. Between security challenged and security strengthened, there's one important word: how. And it is the how that makes all the difference to our nation and our world. Lockheed Martin. We never forget who we're working for. What makes Kraft singles so good? 2 out of every 3 kids don't get the recommended amount of calcium. But with Kraft singles, they get a good source of calcium and the taste they love. Kraft singles. Magic every single time. Throw boring overboard with a new real meal from Long John Silver's. A meal worthy of a plate, just $4.99. Only at Long John Silver's. We may not all be geniuses, but we can all do something smart. Introducing the Hyundai 199 Sonata Lease. It's a smart deal on a really smart car.
There were 3 sisters, all living in the same house, and they were getting a little forgetful. One night, the first sister drew a bath. She started to put one foot in the tub and paused. She yells down the stairs, "I need some help." She couldn't remember if she was getting into the tub or getting out. The second sister says, "Hold on, I'll be right there." She starts up the stairs, but stops. "Somebody help me," she says. "I can't remember if I was going up the stairs or coming down." The third sister, shaking her head, says, "Oh my God, I sure hope I never get that forgetful." She knocks on wood for good measure. Then she says, "I'll be right there. Just let me get the door first."
Good morning. It's Thursday, Gaslighting Thursday, June the 5th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have the headlines, patriotic shorts, motivation, Bishop Barron, Ayn Rand, and gaslighting. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you. And now the headlines for Thursday, June the 5th. Breaking. U.S. trade deficit plummets after Trump's tariffs. Chuck Schumer says the quiet part out loud, admits the Democrats are against the Republican spending bill because it kicks 1,400,000 illegal aliens off taxpayer-funded Medicare. Hakeem Jeffries threatens to dox ICE agents involved in arresting and deporting criminal aliens. The FBI arrested a man at JFK Airport in New York City overnight for allegedly supplying large quantities of chemicals used in the car bombing outside a Palm Springs fertility clinic on May 17. California announces mass deportation of U.S. citizens. And that's the headlines for Thursday, June the 5th. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now about the situation between Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And it really isn't between the two of them. It's just all Elon Musk. Donald Trump has had very little to say other than he says he doesn't understand it, and I didn't at first either understand it, the whole situation. But I think that this is the way it's turned out now is that what is obvious is that Elon Musk joined the administration and backed Donald Trump because he wanted to influence the administration. What he wanted was continued government subsidies of his car company. Apparently, there's subsidies in that he gets directly, not just as an EV dealer, but that there's ones that are specifically earmarked for Tesla. And those apparently, if you believe the rumors, in the big beautiful bill are out. The Republicans have said, nope, no more subsidies for EVs, including Tesla. And so I believe that that's what he was trying to do. He wanted to get in with the administration and see if he could, and try to influence Donald Trump to make sure that he did not cut those subsidies. It failed. He went into the administration. He, did his thing. Made a very impressive show, and Donald Trump, and I'm proud of Donald Trump for doing this, stuck to his guns. He said in the beginning that he was going to cut EV mandates and subsidies for electric vehicles. He said from the very beginning he was going to do that, and he stuck to his guns, even though Elon Musk was on the team trying to influence his behavior, trying to gaslight him, if you will. And Donald Trump didn't go for it. And so what I've seen from Elon Musk is this, it's over the top. Whenever he posts anything in social media now, it seems like it's in all capital letters. He is doing that. He's throwing an absolute temper tantrum. He's taking the situation personally. And then the final straw, the final thing that convinced me of this is today when I read in social media that Elon Musk is suggesting that his best friend, his buddy, is on the Jeffrey Epstein list. He's defaming, he's doing the best he can to defame his friend. And again, all because he's not going to get the subsidies that he's used to getting. Now, I'm wondering, maybe those subsidies are what keeps him afloat. Maybe that's the only thing that keeps his whole empire going. He has Starlink and Barlink and Tatarlink and Mars, Blars, Flars, all that stuff. And without Tesla, though, where would he get the money for all that? I don't know. So it seems to me that Elon Musk is nothing more than a hustler. He got his money, and I remember I was there when it happened, from Obama. That's how Elon Musk came onto the scene in the first place. right? Is Obama gave him the subsidies. And everybody said, wow, what a genius. And I've always been, feeling that, or I've always thought that he was overrated, wildly overrated. He wants to go to Mars. There's nothing on Mars except dust. That's not smart. That's stupid. The smarter move is to go to Psyche 16, which is an asteroid that has $14 quadrillion worth of iron and nickel. It's worth enough that if you could cash it all in, it would mean $1 million for every man, woman, and child on the planet. Okay? That's smart. There's a return on your investment for going to Psyche 16 and finding a way to mine it or bring it back to Earth or bring it back into Earth's orbit or I don't know, but finding a way to get all that iron and nickel from that asteroid. That's smart. Mars is stupid. But the other thing was plug-in electric vehicles. Also stupid. The smarter way to go would have been to get hydrogen fuel cell electric vehicles. Because then all you have to do is just use the existing infrastructure that we have. All of the gas stations, they would be filled with hydrogen instead of gasoline. You're all set. And I've said before, if I'm going to buy an electric vehicle, I would much rather buy one that is a hydrogen fuel cell because, like I said, I just drive to a gas station or a hydrogen station, fill it up with hydrogen, and I'm on my way. Problem solved. So I've never been impressed with him in terms of his intelligence. I've always felt that he's wildly overrated. And apparently his specialty is in manipulating people. Manipulated Barack Obama. He attempted to, and apparently was unsuccessful in manipulating Donald Trump. And I'm wondering, is this? Are we witnessing some narcissism here? As I've played on my podcast many times, there's people that have said that narcissists don't take criticism. They don't take setbacks well. They want things their way. And if they don't get their way, they throw one hell of a temper tantrum. And it certainly looks that way with Elon Musk, that he is throwing the mother of all temper tantrums. So, and again, it just seems now just absolutely obvious that that's what he's doing. He's taking it personally, and that his real issue with the big beautiful bill is not how much spending is in there, but how little spending is in there vis-a-vis electric vehicles and Tesla motors. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now the patriotic short.
An American pilot hid the secret for nearly 50 years before he told what happened to him. December 1943. A young U.S. Air Force Lieutenant, Charlie Brown, flies his B-17 heavy bomber over Germany for the first time. His mission, to bomb a factory in Bremen, producing aircraft for the Luftwaffe. But things don't go according to plan. Anti-aircraft fire pierces the fuselage. German fighters attack. Some of the crew is wounded. The plane barely stays in the air. Suddenly, a Me-109 appears nearby. At the wheel is Luftwaffe ace Franz Stigler. He sees a riddled American bomber, and he can safely finish it off. But he doesn't attack. Instead, he turns around and escorts the B-17, guiding it past German air defense toward the North Sea. When the plane is safe, Stigler turns around and walks away, without firing a single shot. Both pilots kept silent about that day for nearly 50 years.
And that was Patriotic Short. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now time to get motivated.
What controls our focus controls our life. And everything's trying to get our focus all the time, right? Advertisers trying to get our focus. Your phone's ringing. In your pocket, it's buzzing. And that buzz is either your phone or it's an email or it's a text. There's this constant something trying to get control of our focus. But what you focus on determines your destiny in your life. So if you don't take control of it, somebody else will.
If I don't finally get my focus in check, if I keep wandering around distracted, if I keep looking at every new thing that pops up, if I keep trying every single new opportunity, if I keep saying yes to everything, if I keep listening to everybody's complaints, and if I keep doing whatever they ask me to do, at some point, you'll lose your life.
You can lose track of the long-term goal. It fades from your vision. It slips from your mind. But I don't accept that. I want that long-term goal to be so embedded in my mind that I never lose sight of it. Ever.
You need to have a mission for what you're doing today. You should figure out what is it you desire in life and figure out the steps to get there and start working a plan to get there and minimizing everything else. Getting very clear on the mission, and working the plan. Everything else, guess what it gets? A no.
Every day, do something that moves you toward that goal, that keeps that goal alive and in sight and in focus. However small or insignificant that step might seem, take it, do it, make it happen.
Where will you be in your business and your life in 36 months? Not because you hope, because you decide. If there's something you once envisioned and now it's real, it's because you focused on it continuously, didn't you? When you focus on something continuously, something magical happens. You get insights, don't you? You overhear a conversation and you hear something you wouldn't have heard if you didn't have that outcome or goal that you wanted so badly.
What are the things that are stealing your focus? Who are the people that are stealing your focus? And begin to eliminate these distractions. Get laser focused and obsessed on what you want. Be starving and hungry to get it. Be desperate to get it. The combination of desperation and hunger with laser focus over an extended period of time is the formula to be great at something.
The question you want to ask yourself is, what do I want? The target is not the activity. The activity can change. It's what's the result I'm after. Clarity is power. The more clear you are on specifically what you want, the faster your brain can get you there. Because your brain's like a servo mechanism in a missile. It locks on to the heat signature. What does it do? It moves and follows it. That's the way your brain is if it knows the outcome, if it knows the result.
You cannot accomplish what you have not focused on. If you're not focusing on it, it can't happen. You're so focused on everything else but you, and you don't realize you are what's going to blow you up. You are what's going to change your situation. You are what's going to take you to the next level. Stop focusing on 4 things at once, and I need you to concentrate on one thing at a time. And most of you in this room, you can't give up 6 months. You can't give up 8 months. You can't let stuff go for a few weeks. Like you can't let girls go. Some of you just can't let boys go. Some of you just can't let parties go. Let it go. If you want to be successful, if you want to dominate in the area, you got to let everything go with that thing you're pursuing. You can't chase 2 rabbits and catch both of them. So you put your attention on one and go after it. You got to stay focused. Stay focused. Stay focused on the goal. Champions are focused on the goal. They don't have time to be doing stuff that's not going to help them toward the goal. We wake up and grind. Winners win. I focus on winning. Eye on the tiger. I want you to be so focused. I want you to be so concentrated that you block out all noise, that you block out all sound. You got to get to that point like you like that eagle. You know that eagle that's 100 and some odd feet in the air, and that eagle is flying around, and all of a sudden it looks down in the Atlantic Ocean and it sees its prey, and all of a sudden, bam! All that eagle does is one time, it brings out its wings. It shows its face toward where it's going. It puts its head down, and boom, it dives down. It doesn't look to the right. It doesn't look to the left. It doesn't look up. It doesn't look further down. It looks straight at its prey, and it goes, wow.
And that was a little bit of motivation. Back in a minute. Now let's meditate. And that was a little bit of meditation. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now the Daily Stoic.
No pain, no gain. Difficulties show a person's character. So when a challenge confronts you, remember that God is matching you with a younger sparring partner, as would a physical trainer. Why? Becoming an Olympian takes sweat. I think no one has a better challenge than yours. If only you would use it like an athlete would that younger sparring partner. Epictetus, Discourses 1.24.1 through 2.
And that was the Daily Stoic. And now, His Excellency Bishop Robert Barron.
I can't tell you how many times I heard this little adage. It's not about what you do, it's who you are. It's not doing that matters so much, it's being that matters. I mean, I'll admit there's something to that distinction. Sure, I get it. At the same time, I've always felt that distinction is simplistic, as though we can simply divorce our being from our action. When, in point of fact, I think our being is deeply influenced by our acting and by our doing. Work has a lot to do with the kind of people that we become. In our moral choices, we make ourselves the people that we are becoming. And in a similar way, in the work that we do, we become the people that we are.
And that was His Excellency Bishop Robert Barron. And now, the Ayn Rand thought of the day. Quote, businessmen are the symbol of a free society, the symbol of America. If and when they perish, civilization will perish. But if you wish to fight for freedom, you must begin by fighting for its unrewarded, unrecognized, unacknowledged, yet best representatives, the American businessman. Unquote. And that was Ayn Rand from the chapter, America's Persecuted Minority, Big Business, from the book, Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, gaslighting.
See, there's a big problem with self-censorship, and that is that every time you fail to express who and what you are in an articulated manner, you first of all lose an opportunity to know yourself better. And that's not good, because you have to pilot yourself through life, and life is a very dangerous and treacherous enterprise. And if you don't know yourself well, then you won't pilot yourself well, and you will be hurt more often than you need to be. And that is not trivial.
And that was gaslighting. And remember, gaslighting, the point of it is self-censorship. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, Maria Bartiromo and then Stu.
But Chinese state media is reporting that.
So, and assuming that it is happening, what I'm hoping is that we're going to get more information about these Chinese nationals at University of Michigan that have brought in what they're calling agricultural terrorism. And I think it's something that we really need to understand, look after, and I'm glad to see the president's taking a hard line on some of this.
Maria, you know I like to end on a joke, but this really is no laughing matter. I'm serious, because when we think about the sacrifices that not our forefathers, but our relatives did in World War II, they lost 4 years of their lives to defend our nation from being taken over. And it's high time we get clear-minded when it comes to China. They don't want to be our competitor. They want to replace us. And so, yes, our universities, you may have to go without a few foreign student funding. Our businesses may need to disentangle themselves from China money, from the CCP, in order that we have a country. It is deadly serious, dire consequences. It's high time we all made a sacrifice for the betterment of our nation.
Well, corporate America needs to focus more on this. You know, we've been talking about this for a long time, and John Ratcliffe years ago told me that the Chinese strategy when it comes to American companies is very simple. Rob, replicate, replace. That's it. And we see that over and over again. And of course, this most recent story with potential assassins bringing in this pathogen is quite concerning. Thanks, everybody. Great show. Really appreciate all your time. Have a good day. We'll see you again tomorrow. Varney and Company picks it up. Stu, take it away.
All right. Good morning, Maria. Good morning, everyone. President Trump has announced a travel ban on 12 countries and some restrictions on travel from 7 others. It is a sweeping extension of the president's policy of strict controls on who comes into America. The ban affects mostly Middle Eastern and African countries. It goes into effect on June the 9th. This comes days after an Egyptian man here illegally, allegedly set fire to people near a pro-Israel event, and the discovery of a plot by Chinese nationals to smuggle a dangerous pathogen into a lab in Michigan. To the markets. Fairly quiet this morning, but we hear Chinese state media is saying that the phone call between Xi Jinping and President Trump has already taken place. We cannot confirm that. It's what Chinese state media is saying. The Dow up 90, S&P up 12, NASDAQ up 41 points. Bitcoin, last time we checked, it was 104,000. It is now 105,700. But look at interest rates. They continue to edge lower. The 10-year, way below the 4.5% level that it hit last week. Now you're looking at 4.35. The 2-year, well below 4%. Now it's 3.87. All right, on the show today, Germany's leader arrives at the White House later this morning. Chancellor Friedrich Merz meets President Trump just as a trade deal with Europeans is said to be very close. NATO and Germany's big military spending plan also on the agenda. They'll hold a meeting on camera. You'll see it right here. Putin told President Trump he will retaliate against Ukraine for the devastating drone attacks deep inside Russia. That war clearly not over. And we'll have a lot more on the plot to smuggle into America a very dangerous fungus that could be used as a terror weapon. The U.S. Attorney's Office listened in to conversations between 2 Chinese nationals. They detailed putting the pathogen into a Ziploc bag and hiding it in a woman's shoes. Who sent them here? And did Xi Jinping know about it? We cover it all on this Thursday, June 5th, 2025.
And that was Maria Bartiromo and Stu Varney. Non-profit news now. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now from a book that's called Good Inside. What's the opposite of understanding? For this argument's sake, it's convincing. Convincing is the attempt to prove a singular reality, to prove that only one thing is true. Convincing is an attempt to be right, and as a result make the other person wrong. It rests on the assumption that there's only one correct viewpoint. And then my question is this supposed to be convincing? Further, convincing has one goal in mind, being right. And here's the unfortunate consequence of being right. The other person feels unseen and unheard, at which point most people become infuriated and combative because it feels as if the other person does not accept your realness or worth. Feeling unseen and unheard makes connection impossible. Understanding two things are true and convincing one thing is true are diametrically opposed ways of approaching other people, so a powerful first step in any interaction is to notice which mode you're in. When you're in one thing is true mode, you're judgmental of and reactive to someone else's experience because it feels like an assault on your own truth. As a result, you will seek to prove your own point of view, which in turn makes the other person defensive because they need to uphold the realness of their experience. In one thing is true mode, exchanges escalate quickly. Each person thinks they're arguing about the content of the conversation when in fact they're trying to defend that they are a real, worthy person with a real, truthful experience. And again, is this convincing? Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, what does the phrase, if you're explaining, you're losing, mean? This was said by Ronald Reagan, speaking of political campaigns. From the perspective of your audience, if you have to explain yourself, you come off looking desperate to convince. As a consequence, you lose the high ground. From a more philosophical perspective, if you have a clear conscience and strong conviction towards the positions you take, your values, truth, and direction, you don't need the opinions or consent of others. As a consequence, you don't need to explain yourself. However, if you yourself are not convinced of the validity and truth of your position, or you can't fully justify your choices, then you continue to expel words in an attempt to create the illusion of certainty. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now the preamble to the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Jordan Peterson.
There comes a moment in the journey of dealing with those who manipulate, deceive, and try to control your emotions that something shifts. It may be subtle at first, a small feeling, an internal shift that feels almost imperceptible, but over time you begin to notice it more clearly. It's the realization that slowly but surely you've regained your power. You've taken back control of your life from the person who once held it hostage. It's not a simple victory. It is the product of hard-won clarity, emotional fortitude, and a willingness to stand firm in your own reality despite the distortions others may try to impose on you. When you set out to reclaim your life from the chaos of toxic relationships, one of the first and most critical steps is learning to recognize and enforce boundaries. Boundaries are the walls that protect you, the lines in the sand that separate your inner world, your autonomy, your selfhood from the external pressures and influences that seek to invade, distort, or control it. Without these boundaries, we risk losing ourselves entirely to the whims and manipulations of others. But what are boundaries really? They are not rigid defensive walls meant to isolate or shield you from the world, nor are they an excuse for emotional distance or avoidance. Instead, they are the clear, articulated statements of what you will accept and what you will not accept from others. They are personal and individual, based on your values, your needs, your history, and your current emotional, mental, and spiritual state. And when it comes to navigating the often tumultuous dynamics with a narcissist, they are non-negotiable. The first step in building healthy boundaries is recognizing where they have been violated. A narcissist's modus operandi involves constant manipulation and the erosion of your personal space, both emotionally and mentally. They thrive on blurring the lines between themselves and others, seeking to control, dominate, and distort your sense of reality. But the moment you begin to see through their tricks and acknowledge the emotional and mental strain they've placed on you, you are already at the first point of empowerment. It's easy to get caught in the cycle of self-doubt when confronted with such manipulation. A narcissist will try to convince you that your boundaries are unreasonable, that they are overstepping because they care, or that you are too sensitive, too rigid, too selfish. This gaslighting, the psychological manipulation that makes you question your own sanity, is one of their most powerful tools. But as you begin to rebuild your self-awareness, you will start to realize that your boundaries are not merely preferences. They are essential to your well-being. They are the measures by which you ensure that your identity is not subsumed by someone else's desires or whims. At first, enforcing these boundaries can feel uncomfortable, even foreign. You may have spent so long accommodating the needs of the other person that you've forgotten how to advocate for your own. You may feel guilty for saying no, for drawing that line, for asserting that your needs matter. But it's important to remember that the ability to set boundaries is a sign of health, not selfishness. Healthy relationships, whether personal or professional, depend on mutual respect for each other's space and individual needs. If you're in a dynamic where one person's needs always take precedence over the others, the relationship is inherently unbalanced and damaging. The act of saying no, of asserting your right to peace and stability, is an act of personal power. It says, I will no longer let my world be distorted by another's emotional turbulence. It acknowledges that you are worthy of respect, that your emotional, mental, and physical well-being are sacred. And when you begin to act from this place of self-respect, you not only protect yourself from further manipulation, but you also begin to reclaim the emotional energy that was once drained away by the narcissist's demands. At this point, it is crucial to understand that boundaries are not just about saying no. They are about saying yes to yourself. Boundaries are the means by which you affirm your right to your own life. By asserting your needs, you tell yourself that you are important, that your desires and well-being are worth defending. This is not an easy process, especially when you've been conditioned to prioritize someone else's needs over your own. But with practice, you'll find that standing firm in your boundaries becomes a liberating act. It allows you to reconnect with yourself, to listen to your own voice, and to make decisions based on your own values and goals rather than out of fear or obligation. As you set and enforce boundaries, you will also notice something else. The more you stand your ground, the more the narcissist's tactics will lose their effectiveness. They may lash out initially, they may try to manipulate or guilt you into compliance, but eventually they will see that you are no longer an easy target. The more consistently you maintain your boundaries, the less power they have over you. Over time, their capacity to control or manipulate your emotional state will begin to diminish because they will recognize that you are no longer an active participant in their drama. This process, though difficult, is also transformative. As you begin to assert your boundaries, you are not just changing the dynamics with the narcissist. You are changing the way you relate to yourself. You are learning to value yourself, to trust yourself, to believe that you deserve peace, respect, and autonomy. The moment you start taking this power back, you will begin to notice changes within yourself. You will become more confident, more assertive, and ultimately more free. Your sense of identity will no longer be a reaction to the demands and manipulations of others. Instead, it will be rooted in your own values, beliefs, and goals, allowing you to move through life with a greater sense of clarity, purpose, and self-assurance. The process of reclaiming your power after being involved with a narcissistic individual is a long and painful journey. It involves, above all else, the recognition of your own worth and the acceptance that your needs, your feelings, and your personal identity matter just as much as anyone else's. This may sound simple in theory, but the narcissist has a way of making you feel as though you are secondary to their existence, a mere accessory to their story. They are masters of manipulation, experts at sowing seeds of doubt in your mind and slowly eroding your sense of self. The recovery, then, is not just about cutting ties with them. It's about reclaiming the strength to stand firm in the knowledge that you are worthy of better. The narcissist, through their behavior, teaches you to question your own reality. They may gaslight you, deny your experiences, and twist your perceptions until you no longer trust your own judgment. And in many ways, this becomes the crux of the issue. The narcissist's influence is not just about their actions or words. It's about their ability to make you feel small, insignificant, and powerless. For many, this slowly leads to a diminished sense of self-worth. But the moment you realize that this manipulation was a systematic effort to undermine you, the process of reclamation begins. That realization, no matter how painful, is the first step to recovery. Reclaiming your power involves the conscious decision to stop allowing that influence to dictate how you view yourself. One of the most critical components of this is learning to trust your instincts again. The narcissist is often skilled at twisting the narrative, making you second-guess yourself, questioning whether you're imagining things or whether you're being overly sensitive. But as you begin to heal, you will start to recognize that your instincts were never wrong. You are simply conditioned to ignore them, to subjugate them to the demands of someone else. The more you listen to yourself, the clearer the truth becomes. At first, this may not feel easy. It may feel like a delicate process of reassembling pieces of your identity, slowly putting yourself back together in a way that feels solid and genuine. You may find yourself second-guessing whether you are making the right decision, whether you truly have the strength to break free from the patterns of behavior that have been ingrained in you. These feelings are normal, and in many ways they signal that you are pushing through the discomfort of growth. It's important to understand that you will not be healed overnight. Healing is not linear. Some days it will feel like you've made significant progress, and other days it may seem like the past is pulling you back into its grasp. But with each day that you choose to reclaim your voice, your power, your identity, you are breaking free from the narcissist's grip. And in time, the grip weakens. What's particularly insidious about narcissistic abuse is that the damage is often invisible. The narcissist's primary goal is not just to control you, but to distort your perception of reality. They want you to believe that you are incapable of making your own decisions, that your feelings and needs are irrelevant. This is why their manipulation often goes unnoticed at first, because they cloak it in words that seem innocent or even caring. It is only when you step back and look at the broader picture that you can see how the manipulation has influenced every aspect of your life. As you begin to reassert control over your life, it is essential to take a deep look at the patterns of behavior that were established during your time with the narcissist. This is where the work really begins. It's not enough to simply cut ties with them. You have to actively work to untangle the web they have spun around you. This may involve rebuilding relationships with others, seeking therapy or counseling, and most importantly, learning to trust yourself again. You will also need to develop the resilience to deal with the inevitable pushback from the narcissist when they realize their influence over you is slipping away. They may resort to anger, guilt tripping, or even attempts at manipulation, trying to drag you back into their world. But with each step you take in reclaiming your power, you become more equipped to handle these tactics. And one of the most empowering realizations you'll have as you move forward is that you don't need validation from others, especially not from someone who has spent so much time trying to devalue you. Your value is intrinsic. It's not dependent on how someone else perceives you, nor is it determined by how much you are willing to sacrifice for others. You have the right to live for yourself, to honor your own needs and desires without constantly seeking permission or approval from anyone else. As your sense of self-worth grows, you will find that you are able to engage in healthier, more balanced relationships. The narcissist, by contrast, will remain mired in their need for control and admiration. Their world, built on the manipulation of others, will begin to collapse in on itself as the people they've used and discarded in their lives begin to see through their tact. Their need to dominate, to maintain a false image of perfection, is a fragile construct, and it is only a matter of time before it unravels. Meanwhile, you will have reclaimed your autonomy, and with it, the freedom to live a life that is truly your own. And while the process may have taken time, the strength and clarity that come from it will continue to shape your life for years to come. The journey to reclaiming your power from a narcissist is not a simple one, nor is it an easy one. It requires a deep, often uncomfortable process of self-examination, challenging deeply held beliefs about yourself and the world around you. The narcissist's primary weapon is manipulation through control, deceit, and an insidious undermining of your sense of reality. This is often a gradual process, so slow and subtle that you don't even realize what is happening at first, that make you doubt your thoughts, your feelings, your instincts. Over time, this constant undermining erodes your self-esteem and leaves you questioning your worth. The process of taking your power back then begins with recognizing the way this manipulation has shaped your life. To understand how to regain your sense of self, it is important to realize that the narcissist operates within a specific psychological framework. They are driven by a need for control, a need to be admired, and a need to maintain a false sense of superiority. They are not concerned with your well-being or your emotional needs. They are concerned only with how you serve their desires and how they can feed off your validation. This, fundamentally, is the narcissist's core mode of operation. They will use charm, flattery, and guilt to manipulate you into serving their needs, all the while making you feel that you are unworthy or inadequate when it comes to your own. When you begin to recognize this behavior, you also begin to see how deeply you have been affected by it. The narcissist will often make you feel as though your needs are insignificant or that you are somehow selfish for wanting things from the relationship. You might even find yourself apologizing for things that weren't your fault or feeling guilty for expressing emotions. This confusion is part of their design to keep you off balance and prevent you from standing firm in your own truth. But when you realize that this dynamic exists, you are no longer a passive participant in it. You begin to see how you've been trained to prioritize their needs over your own, how your identity has been shaped by their perception of you rather than by your own internal values. The next stage in reclaiming your power involves the ability to differentiate between the truth of your own feelings and the distortion that the narcissist has worked so hard to impose upon you. This is a critical moment in the process because you must begin to reassert your voice, to recognize that your feelings and experiences are valid. The narcissist thrives on making you doubt yourself, to cast you into a perpetual state of confusion. But when you start to see the manipulation for what it is, you start to regain control over your own perceptions. This may require a radical rethinking of your beliefs about yourself, about others, and about the nature of relationships in general. You may have to unlearn some of the patterns you've internalized over time, beliefs that have kept you small, that have kept you from trusting your own judgment, and that have kept you bound to the narcissist. Once you've begun to see through the narcissist's false narrative, you will need to reinforce your personal boundaries. Narcissists are often skilled at breaking down barriers, finding ways to invade your personal space, emotionally, mentally, and even physically. Establishing clear and firm boundaries is critical in protecting yourself from further manipulation and damage. This process is not easy because it often feels uncomfortable to stand up for yourself in a direct and firm way. It goes against the grain of everything you've been taught by the narcissist, who has likely convinced you that setting boundaries is selfish or inappropriate. But the reality is that boundaries are essential for maintaining your integrity, your self-respect, and your ability to function in healthy relationships. Reclaiming your power involves regaining the narrative that you must always accommodate the needs of others, especially when those needs come at the expense of your own. As you continue to heal and regain control of your life, you will likely find that your emotional reactions begin to change. You may experience moments where you realize that you no longer feel as reactive to the narcissist's manipulation, that their attempts to provoke you no longer hold the same power over you. This is a sign that you are reasserting control over your emotional responses. So the narcissist, whose identity is built on manipulating others, relies on your emotional reactions to validate their existence. When you stop responding in ways that fulfill their needs, their power over you begins to dissipate. You become less vulnerable to their attacks, less susceptible to the emotional games they play. It is through this emotional detachment that you truly begin to heal and reclaim your power. But even as you regain control over your emotions and your boundaries, there is another challenge that often arises: the narcissist's attempt to undermine your progress. Narcissists don't let go easily, and they often come back in one form or another, attempting to reassert their influence. They may use guilt, charm, or manipulation to draw you back into their world. This is where your strength of character becomes crucial. You must remain steadfast in your commitment to your own well-being, recognizing that every time you entertain their attempts to reconnect, you are allowing them to infiltrate your life again. True power comes from the ability to remain firm in the face of this pressure, to refuse to engage with their toxic behavior, and to continue building a life that is centered around your own values and goals. Finally, one of the most important aspects of reclaiming your power is the understanding that you are deserving of a life free from manipulation, free from the emotional toll of narcissistic abuse. The narcissist's world is one of deceit, falsehoods, and an insatiable need for admiration. Their power over you exists because they have convinced you that you are unworthy, that your needs are secondary, and that their desires must always come first. Reclaiming your power means rejecting that false narrative and embracing the truth of your own inherent value. It means recognizing that you have the right to exist in the world without constantly being subject to the whims of someone else. As you do this, you will find that your confidence grows, that your self-worth solidifies, and that your emotional independence becomes a source of strength. And with that strength, you begin to build a future where the narcissist's hold on you is no longer a part of the equation. It is essential to recognize that the process of reclaiming your power from a narcissist is not simply a matter of severing ties or walking away. It is a process that begins deep within at the level of your own psychology. The narcissist's influence, for all its destructiveness, is rooted in your own vulnerabilities, your own sense of self, and your relationship to others. To free yourself from their grip, you must understand that their power over you is ultimately the result of a distortion or a manipulation of your reality, your worth, and your perception of relationships. The first step in this reclaiming process is understanding how the narcissist operates. Narcissists are at their core driven by an insatiable need for admiration and control. They see people not as individuals with their own agency, but as objects that can be manipulated for their own gratification. The narcissist world is one in which they are at the center and everyone else exists merely to reflect their greatness. Right? This is a fundamental aspect of their personality structure. Their need for admiration, validation, and dominance often goes unchecked because they employ a range of tactics to maintain control over those around them. They will gaslight, devalue, and exploit others to secure their position of superiority, all the while maintaining a facade of charm, charisma, and even vulnerability. For you, the victim of this manipulation, it is critical to recognize that the narcissist behavior is not a reflection of your inadequacy, but rather an indication of their dysfunction. Narcissists thrive on the psychological energy of others. They need to feel powerful, superior, and adored. And to maintain that sense of superiority, they must keep others in a state of subjugation, self-doubt, and insecurity. They are constantly feeding off the validation they get from others, and the more they can erode your confidence and sense of self, the more they can maintain their false sense of grandeur. This is why their behavior is so damaging. It chips away at your sense of identity, leaving you questioning your worth and your ability to trust your own thoughts and feel. The next stage in reclaiming your power involves recognizing the distortions that the narcissist has implanted in your psyche. Over time, their manipulations can cause you to doubt your own perceptions and instincts. You may begin to second guess yourself, feel confused, or feel as though you are always walking on eggshells. You might find yourself apologizing for things you didn't do, or feeling guilty for expressing your needs. This self-doubt is a critical aspect of the narcissistic relationship, as the narcissist works to convince you that you are somehow broken or unworthy of respect. To reclaim your power, you must first reconnect with your own truth. This means questioning everything you've been told by the narcissist about yourself, your value, and your needs. So this is not an easy process because it requires a fundamental shift in how you see yourself and the world around you. Narcissists manipulate not just your behavior, but your very worldview. They create a narrative in which they are always right, always justified, and always deserving of special treatment. They craft a reality in which your needs are irrelevant and their desires are paramount. To break free from this narrative, you must start to build a new framework for understanding yourself and your relationships. This process involves a great deal of introspection as well as the courage to confront uncomfortable truths about yourself and your past. You must be willing to accept that you are not the problem. The problem is the manipulation, the control, the exploitation that the narcissist has inflicted upon you. As you begin to see through the narcissist's manipulations, you will need to set clear and firm boundaries. This is crucial because narcissists will continue to try to exploit you unless you make it clear that you will no longer tolerate their behavior. Setting boundaries is not about being cruel or vindictive. It's about protecting your emotional and psychological well-being. Narcissists are expert boundary violators, and they will push, prod, and attempt to breach the lines you draw. This is why it is so important to maintain a firm stance. They will test you, trying to see if you are serious about enforcing those boundaries. At this point, you must be prepared to stand your ground. You must understand that these boundaries are non-negotiable and that any attempt by the narcissist to break them is a violation that cannot be allowed to go unchecked. The act of setting boundaries is also about reclaiming your own agency and autonomy. For far too long, the narcissist has sought to control your actions, your emotions, and your life choices. To regain your power, you must take back the right to make decisions for yourself. This means saying no when you need to, speaking up when you are uncomfortable, and standing firm in your convictions. It may be uncomfortable at first, especially if you have been conditioned to prioritize the narcissist's needs over your own, but it is an essential part of the process of healing and reclaiming your power. As you continue to implement these changes in your life, you will begin to notice shifts in your emotional responses. The narcissist's attempts to provoke or manipulate you will lose their potency. You will find that you no longer react in the same way. The emotional pull they once had over you will begin to fade, and with it, their power over you will diminish. This is a sign that you are regaining control over your own emotional landscape. Narcissists thrive on emotional reactions. They want to provoke you, elicit a response, and then use that response to maintain their sense of control. When you stop reacting, you stop feeding into their manipulation. The more emotionally detached you become, the less power they have over you. One of the final steps in this process of reclaiming your power is learning to trust yourself again. This is often the hardest part because narcissists spend so much time undermining your confidence and sowing seeds of doubt that it can be difficult to believe in your own judgment. But the truth is that you are capable of making sound decisions, of discerning what is best for you, and of acting in your own best interest. The narcissist's manipulation cannot erase the strength that lies within you. As you continue to set boundaries, trust your instincts, and disengage from the narcissist's influence, you will begin to rebuild your self-confidence. This is the true path to freedom, not simply walking away, but reclaiming your autonomy, your self-worth, and your ability to trust yourself again. Reclaiming your power from a narcissist is not about revenge or retribution. It is about taking back your life, your energy, and your sense of self. It is about recognizing that you are worthy of respect, love, and care, and that you no longer need to subject yourself to the toxic influence of a narcissist. As you continue on this journey, you will find that your life opens up in new and unexpected ways. You will be able to cultivate healthier relationships, build stronger connections, and most importantly, live with a renewed sense of self-respect and confidence.
And that was Jordan Peterson. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is Ron, your host and the only true conservative in the United States. Today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there and reminding you that atheism doesn't exist.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.